Okay, everybody, we got another DIY project today. Let me give you kind of a rundown of what we're going to be doing today. Let me flip the camera around, show you what. So down here, I've got this antenna. This is a ham radio antenna. It's called an open stub J-pole. It's a portable UHF VHF antenna I use for portable stuff when I set up. I help with race coordination, both like marathons and bicycle races, that kind of thing, and be able to set up portable. This does have a 1/4 20 stud in it right here, so it does fit on a regular tripod, but I wanted something a little more sturdy. Tripods get knocked over too easy, and something that would also get it up off the ground a little farther. So I've got an idea. Back of the truck there, standard trailer hitch. I want to build a mount that will fit in my 2 or 2.5 inch receiver there and hold the antenna. Got a piece of 1-inch PVC pipe that we're going to use for the mast. Going to cut that into some pieces. And one of the other requirements is I've got ram boxes on this truck, and I want it to be able to fit in the ram boxes, which means it can't be any longer. Each piece has got to be about, I don't know, 4.5 feet long. I should have enough room for that. So that is the plan for today, is to build a mast mount system for that antenna. So let's get started, see how we do. So I came up with a little bit of an idea. Let me show you what I've got. This is the base, again, to that open stub J-pole. I just took the verticals off. It's a portable one, so it's a little easier to work with. Like I said, there's a 1/4 20 hole right here for mounting on a standard tripod. I'm going to take advantage of that and on our mount that we're building here. What I came up with, I went down to the old Home Depot, picked up some couplings as well. So that's just a standard slip coupling for 1-inch pipe. And this here is a cap, or a 1-inch plug for the pipe. Just fits inside our coupling just like that. And it's a plug, so it's solid down in there. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 1/4 20 bolt, get it set for the right distance so that it sticks up here, go through the middle of this, and it will screw up on here like that. Give it a nice solid place to support that antenna. And then what I'm going to do is take the inside of this and fill this up with some epoxy so that everything's nice and solid and well set up in there. It should give us a nice solid base for the antenna. And then all it does, once we screw this into the plug here, all we have to do is then put it in our coupling, and this can go on top of our section of PVC pipe. So that's the next step, is getting this drilled out to a quarter-inch hole, getting our bolt in here the right length, and getting some epoxy going. I did pick up some of this plastic bonder epoxy, 2-part epoxy from JB Weld. I've had really good luck with this stuff. It bonds really well to all of your plastics and metal, aluminum, steel, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to use that to mix up here for the epoxy. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to take some 60 grit sandpaper and just come inside here with the 60 grit, rough this up nice inside so I get a little bit of a mechanical bond there as well. It's not really structural. There's going to be a bolt in there that's bolted through that holds everything. It'll just make everything give it a little more rigidity and a little more strength in the end. So that's the next step. I'll go get that done, and then I'll bring you back and show you what I'm working on. So this was my plug that I had. This top rim had some lettering, some embossed lettering and casting marks on it, and I didn't like it because it was sticking up there. So I went over to the disc sander and I just touched that off so it's a nice, flat, smooth top there on the plug. And then just took another little piece of sandpaper and touched up the edges so I don't have any sharp edges. On the bottom, there were some other little casting marks and embossings. One right in the middle where I wanted to drill, so I just touched it off on the disc sander as well and drilled a 1/4 inch hole in the bottom for our bolt. Rolled my bolt in and found a bolt here. I believe it's 1.25 inches, and we'll stick it up through here, and you'll see there's just a bit of thread exposed out the top, and that's just perfect. On this antenna, you actually don't want the bolt to stick up above. When you get it screwed in here, you don't want that bolt sticking up above this surface on this antenna, because it can actually change the property of the antenna a little bit. So this sits just just below flush on there, so it's perfect length. Just lucked out that it happened to be the perfect length and didn't have to trim it off at all. So then what I'm going to do is, you may have noticed this bolt is not threaded the full length. So that's all I had. I didn't want to mess with going and getting special hardware. So we'll push that in there. Then what we're going to do is we're going to drop a couple little bit larger nuts over that. And then we're going to take another 1/4 and screw it down on there. Tighten that up, and then I'm going to fill that cavity with epoxy. So let me get this tightened up, get the epoxy mixed up, and I'll show you what that looks like, and we'll set it aside and let it start curing. Okay, I've got our JB weld out here, got our nut all tightened down, and you can see ready to go here. And I'm just going to mix up enough epoxy to fill that cavity a bit. Okay, made a big mess here, but I'm gonna go grab some alcohol. Alcohol does wonders for cleaning up that epoxy off the end of that bolt there. I'm gonna go grab some alcohol, clean that off, and be ready to go. All right, crisis averted. I don't know if you know this or not, but alcohol does a fantastic job of cleaning up epoxy. If you make a mess while you're pouring it, it will clean up the surfaces and the threads really well. Unfortunately, my wife is a diabetic and has a lot of little alcohol swabs on hand, so I kind of have an unlimited supply of those. So I went and raided the stash and cleaned that bolt up real good with some alcohol swabs and our surface here, so it's good to go. Don't tell her I raided her stash. Then we're just going to set this here, let that set, and we'll move on to part 2 of the build, and that is building the receiver hitch mount. All right, we're over here at the chop saw. Wanted to show you guys something. This saw that I'm using is actually just a Milwaukee power miter box. This is a wood chop saw. And you can see in here, the blade is obviously a little too small for this saw, but this is a 7 1/4 inch Diablo Demon blade. You can get these at Home Depot, but you can see it's rated for metals and stainless steel. So this blade is a construction blade, carbide tipped, that will cut steel. Now you have to be careful. It does have a maximum RPM rating because those carbide teeth are brazed on. You can't run it too fast. But this particular little saw runs under the maximum RPM for this blade. Now on the saw, I had to pad the bottom here with a piece of just 1x material to get it up high enough that the blade will cut all the way back to the back corner here. I had to add that, but this is just a power miter box, happened to be a Milwaukee that I got from my dad. This that we're working on is a piece of 2-inch, 1/4 inch wall steel tube, fits inside a 2-inch receiver hitch. It's 1/4 inch wall, so it's heavy duty stuff. But we're going to cut this on this wood saw with this special metal blade, and it's going to be a cold saw. Okay, I decided to set you up on the camera here just so you can see. I'm going to cut this in real time so you can see how quick and easy this actually cuts. So here we go. I got just a little notch there where I touched the blade, make sure it was in the right spot. So here we go. We're going to cut this in real time. There you go. That was a real-time cut on this material, and you can see that's 1/4 inch wall material, and that's cool to the touch. I can put my finger on it, run it all the way around. We just cut that off with that blade, cold saw style, and you can get that blade at Home Depot or any of your big box stores and put it on a standard wood chop saw and have yourself a cold cut saw that'll do that. All right, back over here at the bench. So this piece is going to give you kind of an idea of what this is going to look like. I got about a 2-foot piece of tube here of the 2-inch that's going to go into the receiver hitch on the truck. This is long enough that when I put my tailgate down, I don't have to worry about the tailgate interfering with my mount. This piece is going to go vertical on the end out here like this, and that's going to be the holder for the mast. And then what I did is I just took and cut off a short piece, about a 12-inch piece of pipe, and I just put a coupler on it. None of this is glued. It doesn't have to be. It's not going to hold water or anything. And it didn't quite fit as tight as I'd like it in the pipe. So right here I wrapped a couple of bands of electrical tape just to pat it out a little bit, so that when it slips inside here, it barely has any movement at all. Fits pretty good in there with that electrical tape on it. So next step is, one, I need to weld this piece to the end here so that we have our upright. But before I do that, I need to drill my holes in the part that's going to go inside the receiver hitch. And I'm going to mark that up, and we'll go over to the drill press and drill it. All right, next step, going to mark our hole here where we got to drill. My truck has a 2.5-inch receiver hitch. This is a sleeve that adapts that 2.5-inch receiver hitch down to 2-inch. So it makes it easy to bring it up here on the bench and kind of set this up and mark it where I want it. So I've just got it recessed just a little bit here from the end because it doesn't need to go all the way in. And this is going to give me a chance, and I'm just going to go in here with a Sharpie where this hole is, and I'm just going to mark that hole. Fill the whole thing in with the Sharpie marker. Pull that out. Now we can see where our mark is. So I got my caliper here, and I set this caliper to just under an inch, just barely, about 50 thousandths under an inch. And I'm going to take my caliper and I'm going to hold it up here, and I'm going to scribe a line with my caliper. Not the best use of a caliper, but you know what? This works. And I'm going to come around here to the other side. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to scribe a line. That gives us two lines there that are close together. And then we're going to measure. We know where we want to be. Don't need to measure again. We know where we want to be because we marked the hole in there. So now it's just a matter of marking and dimpling a hole. And for that, we'll go to our good old ratchet punch. Now these lines aren't on top of each other. We didn't mark it exactly in the middle, but they're close enough together that I can eyeball that right square in the middle of those two scribe marks we made. And we're just going to take our ratchet punch and hit that a few good times. Now we got a good dimple in there to drill to. So that's how I mark center on tubing like this. I don't have to worry about the other side because I'm going to take a long drill bit long enough to go all the way through this. I'm going to set it in that hole, put it in the press, and we're going to drill all the way through. And then we're going to enlarge that hole out to the size it needs to be for a hitch pin. All right, brought you over to the drill press. We got this set here. I got a 3/16 bit in the drill. We're lined up on our center punch mark. I got it clamped in place here with a clamp, and I'm going to hold the other side. And we're going to turn this on. We're going to punch all the way through from this side all the way through the other side with this 3/16 bit. Well, that worked well. Just broke my bit off. Back here at the drill press again, let you in on a little failure we just had. You'll notice I already got a hole drilled right here. Problem was, and I also figured out how I snapped my bit, and it was a failure, complete failure on my part. Forgot to account for where my weld seam was inside my tube. Inside any of these hot roll electrical welded tubes or cold rolled, whatever it is, they got a weld seam inside of them. And I failed to account for where that was, and I drilled from the top right into that weld seam. And when it hit the weld seam, my bit actually climbed a little bit to the side and was drilling at an angle in there. I can't believe it actually drilled like it did, but it was drilling at an angle because it kind of climbed along that weld seam a little bit and punched through. So when I actually punched through, these two holes that I'd gone to great lengths to get lined up weren't, because my bit had bent and drilled at an angle, and all kinds of crazy stuff happened in there. So not critical though. This is not holding anything weight wise. I wouldn't do this if I was building a trailer hitch, but for a mast to hold an antenna, no big deal to have a hole over on this side. So I've just rotated it 90 degrees, accounted for where my weld seam is this time. So we got no weld seam to deal with. Got another bit in here, and we're going to punch this through both sides, and then we'll enlarge it out to a size to fit the pin. Back over here on the bench, or the table here, You can see our sleeve for our 2-inch receiver hitch. So this slips in just fine. Pin slips in just fine. Like I said, I screwed up. I wanted to show you guys how I screwed up. So I got an extra set of holes in here, 90 degrees, but it happens. Fortunately, this is an easy one to recover from. Just rotated it 90 degrees and stuck it in there. But I did that. Also, I have it on there right now because I've got my upright end out here on, and I wanted to make sure my alignment was correct before I started welding. And yes, I've got it sitting on a wood table to fixture it up here just a little bit, and the extent of my fixturing is one 90-degree magnet. Not a critical part, so I don't really need any more fixturing than that. This isn't specific dimension or anything like that. A little bit of you know, maybe out of square or something isn't going to hurt it. I'm going to tack this up here on the table, and I'll take it over to my vise where I can set it nice and solid and weld it up. All right, pulled the truck outside, let that hammer of Thor there cool off a little bit. Come down here, you can see plugged into the receiver hitch, and we'll get level with the tailgate. You can see it sticks out far enough that I can put my tailgate up and down when it's on. On the tailgate here, you'll see I put my open stub J back together. Took the remainder of our pipe, cut it into 2 pieces about 4.5 feet long, and on the end they got couplers on each end, or on the ends of both of them, so they'll stick together. And this little part here is our adapter that fits down into our hitch holder. And our last little critical part, our cap that screws into the open stub J. So I'm going to set you down here, get rearranged, and show you how this all goes together. All right, set you up on the tripod. Hopefully you can hear me well enough, but I'll show you how this goes together. So the first thing we do is we take our cap that we made, full of epoxy. It's not quite set hard yet, but set well enough for what we're doing. And we're just going to screw that into the tripod adapter on our antenna. Now we got our antenna. Going to stick our adapter in there. Going to take one piece of our antenna mast. Going to stick our open stub J adapter in there and into here. And now we've got one piece of antenna up. If we want to go higher, simply a matter of putting that in. Sticking everything together. Now that antenna's nearly 10 feet up in the air for operating mobile, working on these events that I do, where I'm providing communications, ham radio communications for marathons, bike races, that kind of thing. This will be excellent for that. But you can see this works just like I wanted it to. Sits here up off the ground. I can actually leave this in and drive if I wanted to, but I'll take that out while I'm driving. We have our adapter piece that sits in there, just fits nice and snug in there. And then we got our mast pieces, and this just comes apart as easy as it went together. We'll pull that out, pull the bottom section off of our mast, bring our mast down, split our sections in half, and now pull our adapter out. And there we go. That's the mast system I made for my open stub J pole, and these ended up about 4.5 feet long, so they actually fit perfectly in my ram boxes on the truck. So they'll just stay in there all the time, and I'll have them ready anytime I need them.